Are sentencing guidelines mandatory? Have you ever wondered how judges decide on the right punishment for a crime? The answer lies in something called sentencing guidelines. These guidelines are rules or recommendations that help judges determine appropriate sentences. They aim to ensure that punishments are fair, consistent, and proportional to the crime and the offender's background. In the United States, there are both federal and state sentencing guidelines, and their status can vary. At the federal level, these guidelines were initially intended to be mandatory. However, a series of Supreme Court decisions changed that. Now, federal sentencing guidelines are considered advisory. This means that while judges must consider these guidelines when deciding on a sentence, they are not required to follow them strictly. Judges have the power to impose a sentence outside the recommended range. If they choose to do so, they must explain their reasoning. This system aims to strike a balance between consistency in sentencing and the need for judges to consider the unique circumstances of each case. On the other hand, mandatory sentencing laws requiring judges to impose specific minimum sentences for certain crimes. These laws leave little to no room for flexibility. For instance, if a crime has a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years, the judge must impose at least that amount, even if the guidelines suggest a shorter sentence. This distinction is important in the context of true crime and criminology. Many true crime stories highlight cases where judges face the challenge of choosing between strict mandatory minimums and the flexibility offered by sentencing guidelines. Sentencing advocacy plays a significant role here, as it involves arguing for sentences that reflected the individual circumstances of each case instead of relying solely on rigid rules. In practice, sentencing guidelines help courts manage a large number of cases by providing a framework for decision-making. They aim to reduce disparities in sentencing, ensuring that similar crimes result in similar punishments. However, since these guidelines are not mandatory, judges can adjust sentences based on new information or arguments presented during hearings. This flexibility often becomes a focal point in true crime narratives. The details of a case and the arguments made by defense attorneys or prosecutors can significantly influence the final outcome. To sum it up, federal sentencing guidelines are not mandatory, but judges must consider them. Mandatory minimums, however, are binding and requiring judges to impose specific sentences regardless of the guidelines. Understanding this difference is essential in true crime and criminology, as it helps explain why some defendants receive harsher or more lenient sentences.